My fellow Slivers across the multiverse, welcome back to your one and only trustworthy Hive. As you probably already know, Uncle Sliver here, Papa Sliver with the sunglasses, loves Pauper. While I also enjoy things like Standard, Pioneer or Modern, game warping mythics and rares kinda get boring from time to time. Pauper on the other hand feels like every card you play and every decision you make are critical. Your sequencing, the use of your mana, your answers. If you screw up, there is no Agent of Treachery or Ulamog or Broken Planeswalker that will cover for your mistakes and awful playing. And that's kind of exciting. However, I believe Pauper can still be better, even more diverse, even more fascinating. The power level of cards in general has increased a lot over the last few years. Savannah Lions used to be a rare, and now we have a bunch of creatures that have similar stats plus extra abilities or effects. Seriously, not only Savannah Lions is Pauper legal now, it's looking kind of embarrassing nowadays. That's why I think there are a bunch of uncommon cards that could maybe be downshifted to common, thus making Pauper spicier. So without further ado, here are the uncommon cards I would love to see in our beloved only common format. 3-color decks in Pauper are almost unplayable unless the name of your deck is Tron. I mean, yeah, Cave of Temptation and Shimmering Grotto are kinda nice, but only if you have extra mana to spare. You know, like Tron. If you want to play Grixis Tempo with Delver of Secrets and Gormak Angler, your mana base will probably end up being very awkward. Believe me, I have tried. So I don't think having the Tri-lands in Pauper would be format breaking or anything like that. It's not like they cantrip and fix the turn they come into play, you know? It would certainly make 3-color decks more viable, which in turn would make new archetypes and strategies possible. I'm not asking for anything crazy here. No Fabled Passage or Checklands. Just some nice little enters the battlefield tapped lands that would allow us to play new and different 3-color decks. I think that's fairly reasonable for any format. Speaking of better lands, I know, Ancient Ziggurat is kinda better than the Tri-lands in creature-based decks, but that's the key, it's ideal for creature-based decks. The Ziggurat, very much like the Tri-lands, would probably help create new archetypes and decks. Suddenly, decent Gruul monsters or Rakdos aggro decks could become viable in Pauper. As for Ghost Quarter or Field of Ruin, I think the reasoning behind this should be pretty obvious. It would give a bunch of decks a fighting chance against Tron, and one of my favorite decks to play in the format is Tron, so I know firsthand how oppressive and powerful that deck can be. Would these two cards be really crazy in Pauper? First of all, they cost 4 mana, which is already pushing it a little bit for a sleek, fast, mana-efficient format like Pauper. Mid-range decks often struggle against classic aggro archetypes such as Burn or Affinity, so I think Flametongue, Kavu, Kavua, and Ravenous Chupacabra would give them a fighting chance. I mean, it's not like the decks that would want these two cards are going to follow them up on their 5th turn with things like a Glorybringer or the Scarab Goth. And let's not forget that common creatures have also become increasingly better in the last few years. I would certainly love to have the Chupacabra as a nice new friend in Mono Black Devotion, or Flametongue Kavua to improve more mid-rangey red-based decks. Another option could be Shrikmo. Why does Muldrifter get to have all the fun? Self-mill decks are almost always present in every format. Remember when Hogak destroyed Modern kits? Yeah, good times. Pauper is not the exception, but self-mill decks of the format are not really on the level of other archetypes. I thought of this card because one of my choices for best new Pauper cards from Ikoria was Excavation Mole, a 2 and a green 3/3 with trample that puts 3 cards from the top of the library into the graveyard. Nyx Weaver is a bit better, I guess, because its self-mill effect is repeatable and it also has a recollect effect attached to it. But again, it's also 3 mana, and it would need to go in very specific decks, so I don't think it would break anything in the format. Is there a viable, competitive and sweet discard strategy in Pauper? No there isn't. But Shrieking Affliction could change that. I mean, what's the best discard spell? Wrench Mind? Duress? It's not like I'm asking for him to Torak to make a comeback. It's not like we have the Rack or Liliana of the Veil in the format. We do have these couple of rats, which I really like. I mean, I guess that's a thing. Come on, this deck would be sweet and not overly powerful, and you know it. Maybe we could also throw Pauper's Cage in here too, you know, for the lulz. Plus, it has the word Pauper in its name too. That's like 1,000 extra points for flavor. Dryad Militant is an uncommon nowadays, and it does more than Savannah Lions, which, like I mentioned before, used to be a rare. Is the effect of Dryad Militant super game breaking? Not really. I think it could easily be downshifted to common, thus making white or green strategies a bit more dangerous against stuff like Gurmag Angler decks and of course Tron. Speaking of white-green decks, Selesnya Charm anyone? Okay, I'm going to use the 4 mana is already a bit too much for this format argument one more time. Seriously though, the zombie deck in Pauper is already fun and just a few steps away from being actually strong. It's right there on the edge, and I think the Zombie Lord might be the missing piece. Plus, look at the flavor text. It used to be 7 men, but this incredibly cute pig token has the same toughness? Like, how does something like that happen? Just how?
This is a Chucky Beat production.
Why is the artifact-loving Atog common, but the enchantment-based Auratog isn't? I just don't get it. I think Auratog would be an interesting inclusion to the format. I don't know if it would find a home in Bogles or if it would create a completely new enchantment-based deck, but I would really like to see what this card could bring to the format. Last but not least, I think Pauper already needs 1 or 2 board wipes that aren't black. Pyroclasm has been a strong contender for years. We already have a card that is kinda like 2.5 Pyroclasms if you have Threshold. What the fuck is this anyway? So I guess that's a thing. But what about white? The color most commonly associated with board wipes has 0 in Pauper. And no, this crap is not acceptable. Maybe something like Wing Shards could be Pauper's Sail the Wreckage. I think it could make blue-white control an actually viable archetype in the format. Maybe they could print something similar at 4 CMC, I don't know. My honorable mentions include cards like a Janice Pridemate that could add a decent payoff to Soul Sister life gain style decks. Renegade Rallier would make for a really interesting flicker target, and it could certainly create a new archetype since there aren't really any cool Selesnya decks other than Bogles. Gempalm Incinerator to help out goblin decks that very much like zombies are always on the edge of being competitive, and something like Blood Artist to finally give that deserved push to all of those tortured existence and carrion feeder decks. I think there are ways in which they could downshift the cards on this list without the need to include them in draft sets. Commander Precons are at the top of my head. Anyways, this video is obviously what I would like to see in the format. I provided my own opinions, and therefore, whatever has been said up until now is clearly not the ultimate truth or my predictions for the future. and I would love to read what you have to say about this in the comment section below. If you like this video and you would like to see more content like this, please leave your thumbs up, subscribe if you haven't already, and share our content with other slivers across the multiverse. That's the best way in which you can support the Hive. In the meantime, take care, and we'll gather again on the next video.